Welcome in and welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to have you here. In this week's video, we are turning a childhood dresser into an office dream. So the story goes, when my husband and I first moved into this house, we were gifted his childhood dresser from his childhood bedroom, so it held so much sentimental value to him. This is something that you guys have actually been privy to this entire time, because behind me in every single one of my videos has been this dresser, but it has not been finished until now. And I want to walk you through the entire process so that you can learn how to refurbish furniture and honestly save a ton of money from having to buy something new. So let's get into it. In one of the first ever makeover videos I did on this channel, I showed you how we redid this room. And in this, if you were really paying attention, you saw that in the time lapse, the old red version of the dresser was alive and well, and my husband and I hadn't begun working on it just yet. The dresser was red, the knobs were a little bit not my style, and it had a lot of clutter in it that you will absolutely see in this video. So the first thing that we needed to do was to sand this dresser down to its core. So really quickly, some advice on how to sand something down while staying safe and not wasting a ton of your time is, of course, you remove any handles or hardware that's on the piece of furniture. You want to make sure you're sanding underneath where those might attach, because you might pick new hardware for the furniture that doesn't have the same exact shape or size, and you want to make sure you have a blank slate and so everything is refinished nicely. So typically you want to go in and you want to sand in a couple different ways with a more intense grit paper. The lower the number on the sandpaper, the lower the grit. So starting with like 80 or 100 grit, and then moving your way up to sandpaper that's a little bit more fine, even later on when you're finishing it, to give it a nice smooth feel. So we took our sandpaper and we started sanding every single drawer, and sawdust was getting everywhere. One of the things that was quite challenging was getting around the side edges of the drawers and even parts of the dresser, because there was some detail work on there from when the dresser was made, and I wanted to preserve that. One thing you want to keep in mind when you're sanding is it's important to wear safety glasses so that you get no sawdust in your eyes. And in the same vein, wearing a mask would have been the smarter move to keep our airways unobstructed and to keep everything healthy. We learned that over time, if you don't want to get a ton of sawdust in your hair, just throw a big beanie on, shove all your hair in there. I have a lot of long, thick hair, and I just got the biggest beanie I had, and it made cleaning my hair later a lot better, and I felt like it protected it. I don't know about you guys, but watching these clips back is so satisfying, seeing all that orangey red stain just get off the dresser, get off the drawers. And after hours of sanding, our hard work was finally paying off and the dresser was looking so much better. I was so excited to see the stain gone, but as I had suspected, the wood underneath had a very zebra-like quality, and I knew that's something that I wanted to tackle and somehow mute over time. Not to mention the sawdust was all over the place. My car was absolutely covered, so another tip for you is do this in a space where you're not going to accidentally get sawdust over some of your most prized possessions and expensive vehicles. And like many other great DIY projects before it, this project absolutely got put on the back burner. Not for months, not for weeks, but for years, literally. There was such intense graining of the wood grain on the dresser. Parts of the wood grain still absorbed some of that original stain and parts didn't. So after a little bit of research and brainstorming, I decided to go with a method of finishing the furniture that is tried and true in my book, which is paint washing. Now, if you don't know what paint washing is, it's actually a very simple technique that you can do with almost any raw wood surface, where you take a little bit of a desired paint color and mix it with the same part water, and you create thinner, more liquid version of the paint. You paint it on the canvas and you wipe it away, and it leaves kind of almost like an opaque layer over the piece of furniture that you have without completely removing all the information underneath. With every video, I am not trying to give you a polished, unrealistic view of what's going on. There was a lot of decluttering that had to take place, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. I forgot the tarp! And we were able to move the dresser into place. Part of the reason I wanted to refurnish it in this room is I didn't want to carry it through the house again. And admitting to yourself you're a little lazy is sometimes your greatest superpower. Of course, like always, my puppy Bo could not help but get his paws on the action, and sometimes that was a safety risk, so If I hadn't had my husband there, I absolutely would have put him in his crate or tethered him. The first things you'll need on top of a paintbrush is to pick your ideal paint color. In this case, I believe I went with Pavilion Beige by Sherwin-Williams. I knew it would go well in the space because it's a sister color to the paint on the wall. It's a few shades darker. You'll also need some handy dandy microfiber lint-free cloth so that you can wipe the paint on and off well and not have it stain in places you don't want it to go. Because I wanted to get a cool video, for some reason I decided to pour the paint into my mason jar standing up and not at my table. I got paint everywhere. My dog was starting to get in it. It was a whole fiasco. So I would say don't do that. Just get a nice table, put some tarp out, pour your paint, pour your water, and then mix it together, and don't have the heart attack that I had trying to get my dog's painted feet off our yard and out of our house. The tactic of paint washing is a little bit subtle, but there's some things that you should note in case you want to do it well. So for each kind of paint, if you have an area where you could test it, maybe it's on the underside of the furniture, just to see if you like the color and how it reacts to the wood. Another thing that's so important to keep in note is you want to, as much as possible, paint in the direction of the wood grains or the grains of the material that you have. If you go against the grains, you might have weird streaks and it'll immediately stop looking like a more stained finish like you want. I wanted to show you a couple clips of the first layer of paint wash I did on the dresser in comparison to the drawers, because remember, they're all the same type of wood and the drawers hadn't been done yet, and it was such a night and day difference. Painting the dresser drawers wasn't challenging at all in the sense that they were smaller, and so I could honestly get the majority of the drawer with one big swipe of my brush. However, I had to be really careful of drips coming out, because if there was one area that had too much paint on the frame or on the dresser drawers themselves, it would kind of clump up and that wouldn't look good. And eventually, if I had to scrape that off, you would see the, original wood underneath. That's not what we want. By the time the first coat was done, my office was an absolute disaster. And that's just part of the process. I absolutely hate clutter, but I had to deal with it because sometimes we have to make a mess if we want to move forward. As I alluded to earlier, I eventually did have to take things out of the bigger dresser drawers just so I could paint them properly. And the things I found were almost comical, so I had to share them with you. First, I found a Microsoft Office Max key from 2011, a childhood little box that was open with nothing in it. Of course, an old iPhone case, an old laptop that honestly is fried, plus a little Valentine's card from my dad underneath, stuck to the bottom of it. This is just another reminder for all of us to be on top of getting rid of things we no longer need or giving things a proper home so you don't find them randomly while you're trying to refurbish your furniture. After I did 2 coats of paint, I let everything dry, and the next day I came back to see what had happened. The dresser was looking fantastic, and I needed to move on to step 2 and the final step of paint washing a dresser, which was actually sealing it from scuffs and damages into the future. So in this case, I used the polyacrylic Minwax sealer and it did an amazing job. I just applied it with a normal, I think synthetic brush, and you have to do it a little bit lightly as you go, making sure you don't get big globs and whatnot. You also have to make sure the temperature isn't too hot or too cold in the environment so that the sealer can take properly, and leave enough time to dry between coats. In this case, I only had to do 2 coats, which was awesome, but it definitely did feel a little bit like Jenga when I had to pull in and out dresser drawers to try to get the sealer on the frame of the dresser, on the drawer front, on the sides and front. That was a little bit chaos. When you're putting a sealer on a piece of furniture, you need to be careful of picking the right finish in terms of the level of glossiness. If you want something that has absolutely no shine at all, you would want something that's flat. If you want the tiniest bit of shine or to make it look like there's some clear coat, I would say go for a matte finish like I have. If you want it to be a bit more prominent, maybe like for a cabinet or whatnot, you might want to go for more satin, or you could go for a semi-gloss or gloss that are really, really thick and shiny and give a completely different look. I wanted a matte finish in this case to look natural, and I thought that was a great decision. My husband and my dog gave it the seal of approval.
I'm very excited. So is Bo.
Are you excited? Yay! It was time to put on the jewelry of the dresser, which was, of course, the new hardware. I am just a sucker for anything that is considered a champagne bronze. It's kind of a merge between bronze and gold. It's still warm, but it's not like yellowy or cheesy or looking too old. You can also make it look more vintage by adding a patina to it or even brushing it up. In this case, I wanted it clean. I got these off Amazon. They were incredibly cheap, so amazing. They match other, hardware that we have in the house that is far more expensive. So when I pulled them out of the box, I was excited. Just another fair warning to keep your puppy very well out of the way, because if you are using screws and screwdrivers, they will see those things as toys. They'll want to get into action. It's a huge health hazard. Of course, he was curious, so he got to see and be there for this because, come on, it was a family moment, but we were safe about it, so don't come at me. Not only was screwing each piece of drawer handle extremely satisfying to listen to, it was so visually pleasing. And when I finally got to close the last drawer, I had a huge sigh of relief. The dresser was done, except for the feet, which I still haven't done. All that was left was to put the room back together, reassemble things, and restyle. Now you might be asking to yourself, Christina, wasn't this an amazing opportunity to clear out all that clutter? And I'll respond with, it would have been. Yes, but I didn't. It's still all in this dresser, so don't open the drawers, don't look inside. There's nothing to see there. You already know what's in there. We're gonna clean it one day, it's fine. It is what it is. We put the room back together, we took away the tarp, we did some vacuuming, and it looked great. The dresser was everything I dreamed of and more for a few reasons. It looked professionally done, and I was very proud of myself. I think that I was able to take away the intensity of contrast of the wood grains without losing the original character of the piece. I saved all the hold hardware in case I needed it, but the new hardware worked great as well. It had some sentimental value too, because it is a dresser that my husband had growing up in his bedroom, in his childhood bedroom. And one day in the future when we have kids, I know that they'll be able to use it in their spaces if they'd like. But for now, it is an absolutely wonderful piece for my office, and it really completes this room the way I'd always envisioned it. I have to admit, the only thing that is left on the dresser that I did not finish were the feet. I do not know what to do with these. I'm toying between removing them completely and getting new feet for the dresser, or painting them, or spray painting them like a champagne bronze. I just can't quite make up my mind about it. I need you guys to weigh in on that for me. What should I do with those dang dresser feet? I need that input. Well, thank you guys so much for coming along for the journey of paint washing and refurbishing this childhood dresser of mine. And if you enjoyed this video, if you could give it a big like and subscribe, it really helps me keep creating videos for you guys just like this. Plus, all your feedback lets me know what I'm doing that you enjoy and what you'd like to see more of, so please let me know. I want to make content that is useful to you, inspiring, fun, engaging, and all that good stuff. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye now.